To hell and
You stopped it.
Oh, crap.
To hell and back is in the job description. Being roughed up, scuffed up, run over, kicked, thrown, dropped, dunked, and done the unthinkable is a duty we've embraced for more than 40 years. Through superior engineering and constant innovation, only Pelican has conquered the chaos a life of ambition can dish out. And we've done it to empower you.
Yak Gadget, made in America, based outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Yak Gadget offers all kinds of storage accessories, quick mount motor mounts, anchor systems, track mounted accessories, even paddles. Go to yakgadget.com and get your kayak decked out for your next trip out on the water.
The 153 Bait Company, based in Troy, Ohio, make everything from plastics to custom painted hard baits. Hook 'em hard and hook 'em often. All of our baits are made to order, and all of our hard baits are hand painted to order. So go to the153anglers.com to place your order today.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining the MindSet podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. My name is Chris Slywka, and I'm your host. I'm here with Brian Schiller. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
At least one of us can pronounce last names right.
Yeah. That is true.
I feel bad now.
So what the podcast is going to be about is basically the mental game in fishing, whether it's chasing that bigger fish or chasing down a tournament that you really want. It's all about the mental game. We can all have the same rods, same reels, same everything. But in the end, it's all about your mindset and how you're going to go about getting that reward. So, yeah. So we're going to start with, you said you had a couple tournaments you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, man. I mean, where do you want to go with that? Like, do you want me to talk about like the mental struggle, or how do I mentally prepare, or
a little bit of both? I feel like there's a lot of people out there that rather talk about the lure they're using than the actual preparation for a tournament. And then on top of that, the struggles through a tournament where you go and you don't have a bite by 1 o'clock and you still need 5 fish to fill your limit out.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Like, because I remember when I got heavy into the kayak tournament scene, I did a lot of homework, did a lot of research, and how to prepare myself for that whole thing. And I think one of the things that's totally stuck with me in that perfect scenario, like you're talking about, it's 1 o'clock and you don't even have a fish yet or whatever. It only takes 5 minutes to catch 5 fish is what somebody once told me, or I heard somewhere. And that's kind of really stuck with me. That's all it takes is 5 minutes to get 5 good bites, or 5 bites in general, So I think, with that aspect, it's just a game of never giving up. But I don't necessarily tournament fish very much anymore, but I went really hard in 2019. That was like my year for really digging deep, and I fished the KBF Central Division Trail Series pretty hard, and that was my first year fishing the Trail Series. So Rookie of the Year was like in the back of my mind and things like that. So it's kind of weird, man. Like when you and we'll get back to that Rookie of the Year thing, because that really played a role in what happened to me at the end of that season, so to speak. But preparing for any tournament, I think you got to go in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like, you just got to have that mindset. Like, I'm going to catch 5 big fish, no matter how your pre-fishing goes, no matter how, the beginning of your morning goes, whatever, you're in it to win it. And sometimes it's hard to get over that, right? Like if you're having a rough day on the water and, things aren't working out your way or bites aren't working out your way, it gets kind of tough. But, before you even get to the tournament, or before I even get to a tournament, and I'm fishing seriously, like if I fish a tournament, and that's the thing too, like if I fish a tournament now, I'm just like, I'm donating money because I don't do the homework like I used to.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between the $35 tournament that we join sometimes and the $100 or $200 for the BASS or the KBFs.
Yeah. And that's totally true too, because, in 2019, that was when KBF was doing their pro tour that was in conjunction with their trail series, and I fished both. So, each tournament was costing me, I forget what it was. It was like somewhere between like $250 and $300 with the bonus bucks or whatever I forget what it is. Bonus bucks and the big bass and all that stuff. It was like $250, $300, man. So you're putting quite a bit of money out there on the line. Like you want to go in prepared. And I would do a ton of map study, which that's a whole nother subject. But, I would look for points on the map that would be like my strong suit. I think you all as fishermen know what our strong suits are when it comes to fishing. Like, are you a deep water fisherman? Are you a ledge fisherman? Are you like to fish grass, like to fish shallow, things like that? So I would kind of like look at maps and prepare myself, like, and not only that, but look at satellite images of lakes too. I'm not a big guy on Google Earth. I know a lot of guys do that, and it's just, I started to dabble in that a little bit, but I never really dove into it. But I think a lot of that mental preparation that I did was just doing my homework. I would join Facebook groups for that local lake, and sometimes you can find little itsy bitsy pieces of information on what guys are catching them on and things like that, what they're targeting and stuff. And then just kind of compiling that. And then I would go over that like pretty solid for the week leading up to the tournament or leading up to when I would leave to go pre-fish. And then when I was at the event, I would revisit that information over and over every night. I think that really helps a lot as far as like developing a game plan for actual tournament day and things like that. And not only that, but I think if you know that kind of stuff, it kind of like boosts your confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Like for me, I try to eliminate as much tackle as possible.
Eliminate as much tackle, but like not only that, but like my favorite thing to say during pre-fishing was like if I didn't have a good day, well, I just eliminated a whole ton of water.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree with that. I'd rather eliminate water than find fish.
Exactly.
On practice days.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, yeah, you and I think alike in that fashion. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather find my fish the day before the tournament, not 2 days before. Because that in itself, like, I've had that before where I've found like a couple of good spots that produced same kind of fish all through pre-fishing, and then come tournament, like the night before the tournament, I'm looking at my phone and a map like, okay, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather have like 2 or 3 spots that are really close to each other that I can get to from my kayak. But like, I would go out and like find spots that were like, all right, I got to load up my boat and move spots. And I think sometimes it can hinder you. And I know that has hindered me before. In one specific tournament, from the 2019 season. That was on Mark Twain in Missouri. And I had found spots kind of all over that lake. And I was fishing away from the crowds. Like everybody was over on was it the east side? Yes, I believe it was the east side of the lake. I was fishing the west side. And that's a huge reservoir. And to go from one ramp to the next was a minimum of 45 minutes to an hour, because it was kind of like all these creek arms that came off, and you had to drive all the way around and then back down to the ramp. And that tournament in particular, I know I talked about it on a podcast way back when, but I started off the morning with a bang. Like that night before, I found fish, and that was like when I found good fish. I found like some 16 to 18-inch fish, and at that time, and what I think could also be like in mental anguish is, I was traveling with a couple of guys, Alan Reed, Sam Jones, Dylan Fuqua, and we would all talk at night. We wouldn't tell each other spots, but we'd be like, well, I caught an 18, here's a picture, whatever.
Typical angler talk.
Yeah, right. And I think sometimes that can hinder you, right? And I learned to kind of like not focus on that towards the end of that season. But I knew those guys had found some good fish, and I had found something even better, because they were catching like one good fish and all the rest were like 12-inch, 13-inch fish. And that night I caught I think I caught two fish. One was 18, one was 17 and a half. And usually in pre-fishing, I just get out of there and I leave that alone if I catch two fish of that caliber, And started off the morning with the bang. And I think I was in like second or third place with 4 fish in the first 2 hours of the tournament. And a bunch of the paddle and fin guys were watching on Tourney X, and like group chats blowing up, and I'm watching it, and like, Brian needs one more fish and this and that. And I was so focused on that, and fishing had slowed down. And I'm like, all right, I got to move ramps. Bite's dead here. I got to move ramps. But really it wasn't.
Was it technique?
No, I think it was just the bite did slow down, but they were still kind of following. And come the end of the tournament, I needed one more 12-inch fish, and that would have put me in, I think it was like 7th place. And my whole focus when I fish those bigger tournaments, I want to win them for sure. But my main goal is always to end up in the top 10. Like top 10, be consistent, be consistently up on the top of that leaderboard. That was my thing in 2019. I told myself, you know what? I want to be in the top 10 as much as possible. End of the year, I want to be in the top 100 for AOI. And like, I was good with that. Like, I knew I wasn't this hammer. I wasn't a Russ Snyder's, Cody Milton, Josh Stewart, Jody Queen, all amazing anglers. And I've fished against pretty much all of those guys. Sometimes I did better than them. Most of the time I didn't. But I was okay with that. Like, I just wanted to go out and kind of make a name for myself and just be consistently at the top of that leaderboard. And I did a pretty good job of that. However, that particular tournament is where things kind of turned for me in my season. I started off really good. I had top 10 finishes in my first 2 events. I missed the third event on St. Clair, and then we went to Mark Twain. And I was in the running for Rookie of the Year, and I let that get into my head. I let that top 10 finish get in my head, and I was more focused on the after effects of that tournament than I was actually fishing. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of anglers make. And if you talk to some of those like big name guys that I just mentioned, like, they know that you're going to have a bad day from time to time. You just need to go out and have fun and fish and not worry about all that stuff. You know what I mean? And I really let that play a role into my fishing the last 2 events of the year, I think. And it really threw me off. I wasn't doing what I did, all that mental preparation leading up to the tournament, the map study, putting game plans together, and like really putting the focus in. I was so focused on those rookie of the year standings, AOY standings. Like I was like, at that time, I was like 3rd or 4th in AOY for our division. Like I had a chance to win the Central Division AOY. I had a chance at rookie of the year and this and that. And had I just focused on fishing instead of all that crap,
it would have been a lot better.
It would have been way better. In hindsight, I look back and it's like, had I not moved from my morning spot, I can almost guarantee you I would have caught another 12-inch fish. There was fish all over. The fish weren't getting pressured like they were on the other side of the lake. Like legitimately, I think 3/4 of the field was on the east side of the lake, and like maybe 1/4 of us were spread out through the rest. And had I just chilled out and, calmed down, I would have caught a fish. I did move to that ramp and I lost 2 fish because I wasn't focused on fishing. I was focused on filling my limit.
Being focused on everything else except just the basics.
Right. And that was just it, right? Like that spot I moved to, I had caught fish on a Ned rig. Granted, they weren't great fish. I knew I didn't need a great fish, but I knew there was decent fish over there. And I was fishing my Ned rig so fast compared to the way I fished it in pre-fishing, because this was the dead of summer, water's warm, sun's high, bluebird skies, things like that. And I was fishing my bait so fast, they were looking at it like, yeah, no thanks. You know what I mean? If I would have just slowed it down, I would have been fine. And I actually hooked 2 fish on a topwater bite. And I just didn't get good hook sets. I was just so focused on burning that thing across the water and covering as much water as I could before time ran out. And that really put a hindrance on my finish, And then following that, I remember going to check in, and I checked in and I was so down on myself. One of my traveling buddies, Alan Reed, won that tournament, and I was so mad at myself and my performance. I didn't even embrace the fact that my buddy just won the tournament. So that kind of screwed with me mentally after I left. I remember seeing Dusty Yacker in the parking lot as I was walking up to the check-in table, and he's like, "How'd you do?" And I'm like, "Horrible, man. Couldn't catch my 5th fish and was beating myself up." He's like, "Just let it go, dude. It happens,
It's a hard thing to do, though.
I was like, "Wait a minute. Dusty Yacker just told me to let it go, man." And anybody that knows Dusty, man, I love the kid to death. Hell of an angler. But I know at a point in time he was struggling with that mental aspect. I've seen Dusty have a rough day on the water like that at a Banner Marsh tournament where he lost a couple of fish, man, and he beat himself up over it. And, it is what it is. It happens to all of us, right? But that ride home, dude, I remember screaming, driving. I had a 6-hour or 6.5-hour drive home. I'm punching my steering wheel and I'm screaming and I'm like, "You're so dumb. You couldn't even catch a damn 12-inch fish." Legit, dude. But anybody that drove past on the way home was probably this guy's either on drugs or needs to be on drugs,
Yeah.
And it was just like, I got like 3/4 through my drive. Finally, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is just fishing,
Mhm.
And I let that same stuff get to me at the next event. And, and even the championship event, I was kind of like, well, there's a couple guys that didn't show up. I do have a chance. I had a program dialed in, and I was catching big smallmouth, and then come to find out the night before, somebody else had found that spot and like fished it nonstop all night or all afternoon till pre-fishing was over. And I was just like, my spot's done. That's all I got, like, what am I going to do? And, I ground out some limits over there. And it was what it was. I didn't finish where I wanted to, but that played a mental role in that finish as well. And I know I'm kind of like bouncing around here, man, but I'm just kind of throwing examples of like mental anguish, I guess,
Yeah.
and like what I've done to
Thanks.
overcome that. Like, granted, I haven't really fished a big event like that since that season. Like, I fished some small stuff. Oh, I take that back. I fished a big KBF. KBF last year went to like one tournament's on Saturday, one tournament's on Sunday.
Yeah, their trail series.
Yeah,
It's-
and I went and fished Table Rock last year, and that was probably like the last big event I fished. And I think day one I didn't do that great. The bite had changed. I was on Table Rock Lake, and the lake was like 15 feet above normal level. Like, you were fishing like big bushy trees that are normally up on shore out of water and things like that. And my bite had just kind of gone away from what I found pre-fishing to, tournament day. I kind of struggled, and, it wasn't that great. And I was like, at that point I was like, whatever, tomorrow's another day. Like, yeah, I could go home, but like, Table Rock's one of my favorite lakes. Like, I'm just going to stay and fish. And I went and fished with some buddies that were down from Indiana. Shout out to my boy Brock Howell. But I went and fished with those guys, and I ended up catching big bass in the golden hour. So I won $100 for that. And I was like, well, at least I recouped some money, and I just had fun the rest of the day. I was just like, whatever, I'm going to pick apart this new section of water that I have never even looked at or never even fished. And I remember leaving there like, man, that was cool. I won a big bass, and I didn't do great in the tournament, but like, who cares? I had an awesome time just fishing, picking apart some water. I mean, like, that's something I really enjoy. And I've learned, and I learned that from tournament fishing, was just being able to go out and like pick apart water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just enjoy trying to figure it out, so to speak. So, but that's my roundabout explanation. And I know that was super long, but that was kind of like, some of the mental things that I learned and how I prepared, for that 2019 season when I was like seriously tournament fishing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there, especially from that one tournament you said that where you only caught 4 fish. I mean,
Yeah.
that's definitely. And then the drive home, I've been there. We've all been there,
Yeah.
where we beat ourselves up and we forget that it's just fishing and to just let it go once it's over with.
Well, it's one of those things, right? Like, it'd be one thing if like it was just like me, you, and a couple of guys fishing, you know what I mean? But like, when you start getting money involved, and then like, we all chase this idea, like, especially in the bigger trails, like Angler of the Year, like, that's such a huge thing, right? Like, if you win AOY in Hobie or I know bass isn't doing an AOY, I don't think.
We need to though.
Yeah, but you win the Bassmaster Classic, you know, AOY and KBF, AOY and Hobie, like
it could be
you know that.
life changing.
Yeah, for sure, dude, for sure. And that's the thing too, right? Like, you know, at that time, I was still fresh in the game of like, I mean, I was a rookie for competitive kayak bass fishing tournaments. Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I had started paddle and fin the year before, and I really wanted to make a name not only for myself, but for the podcast. You know, like that was my biggest goal. Like, I guess I'll let that cat out of the bag. I don't think I've ever talked about that. Is like,
we've all been there.
Yeah. I mean, I went super hard in 2019 just to kind of like, because I knew if I did somewhat decent, some people may recognize me. They'll relate that to paddle and fin. And, you know, my focus has always been on like growing paddle and fin podcast, right? Like, obviously everybody knows how much that's grown. And, you know, 2019 was my year to like really put in the work personally, so that way I could, you know, kind of make a name for paddle and fin. And that was kind of the mindset, so to speak, that I had. Had I not worried about that, like, I'm sure a lot different, you know, outcome would have happened. But, you know, that was kind of my focus and my goal. Like, I had more than just like trying to make a name for myself, you know, like, and I always had in the back of my mind too, like, if I miserably fail, like, that's going to reflect on paddle and fin, was the way I personally looked at it.
Yeah,
you know, like,
I'd understand that one.
You know, like if I totally fail, like, people are going to be like, look at this chump. He can't even like catch a limit of fish, and he's trying to talk about kayak fishing on a podcast. You know what I mean? Like, I always had that fear, right? And I think I let too much of that play a role in my fishing. And that's the biggest thing, man. Like, I think we've all been there, right? Like, you know, nobody likes to come up with a 0 in a tournament. Like,
yeah, that was always my biggest fear, and then I did it the very first tournament.
Yeah, see, right? Like, to be honest, like, I don't even remember if I've ever put up a 0 in a tournament, but I know I've not had a full limit in tournaments before. Obviously, the one I talked about. I know there was the division championship on Table Rock in 2019. I didn't have a limit. I did catch big bass of the day, and in the first hour, so that fish won me $600. So I was like, I don't care about a limit. You know what I mean? I just won $600 on one fish, bro, and caught my PB smaller. You know, all in the same cast. You know what I mean? That goes back to like what I mentioned before. Like, the biggest thing that's always stuck with me is all you need is 5 good bites, and all it takes is 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely what I say before every single tournament. I go into the tournament knowing I just need 5 bites, so that kind of takes the pressure off right away.
See, and that's the thing too. Like, I've had those tournaments too where like I'm like, man, I just need to crush the fish. Like, wait a minute, what am I talking about? Like, I don't need to crush the fish. I need to crush 5 fish.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. Like, 5 fish. And as I've, you know, learned so much in that season, that 2019 season, and, you know, going forward, it was just like, all I need is 5 bites. Who cares? Like, that's the biggest thing. I don't even care anymore. Like, honestly, when I fish a tournament, like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want to go out and have fun and catch a fish. And like I said, like, I've done so many podcasts, talked to so many anglers, And the ones that are successful, the most successful, I should say, will tell you just that. I just go out and fish, bro. Like, what are you talking about right now? Like, like and that's just it. Like, the one that always rings a bell with me is Josh Stewart, right? Like, that kid has won a ton of tournaments, both national, local, things like that. And I remember at the Trail Series Championship in 2019, I think he took that was the year that Russ Snyder's won the Trail Championship, but Russ didn't sign up for the Challenge Series Championship or didn't fish any Challenge Series events, and he didn't fish any Pro Tour events. And Josh signed up for those. So Josh took second place in the Trail Series to Russ Snyder's, but he won the Pro Tour and he won the Challenge Series. Dude walked home with I think it was 20 or 30 grand. Like something ridiculous, And I'm like, and I remember him up there talking about what he was doing. And he looked at Chad Hoover and he was like, I did what I always do, man. I was throwing a wacky rig Senko up on this weed flat that I found that was in between two runs of current. That's all I did. What I always do, And I was like, man, that's interesting. Like, I've been trying to learn all these different techniques, working all these different baits, trying to I'm like, dude, what am I doing? And I've learned that more and more. Like, stick to some of your strengths. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've always preached, I try to learn 2 or 3 new techniques a year. That way I can put them away in my little toolbox, a bag of tricks and stuff.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah. Just have some confidence in that in those styles of presentations, because you never know. What you're normally used to and 100% confident in may not work, right? And
I definitely had that experience in Michigan.
Yeah.
Where I took everything that I thought I should be throwing, and none of it worked in pre-practice. And then I went and just threw a jerkbait, something I never threw. And the whole tournament, that's all I used.
Yeah. That was in the paddle and fin event?
Yep.
Oh, right on. Right on.
Yep.
And you finished up towards the top 10 too, didn't you?
No, I finished 15th. I couldn't find the bigger fish, but,
right on.
I still managed a limit out of nothing. Yeah.
See, and that's funny, right? Because I think about when I first started, I would be so deathly afraid of throwing something that I've never thrown before come tournament day. And I think that right there takes a lot of mental anguish to get over, or mental block, I guess, or I don't know what the proper terminology is. I don't know, dude. I would be I'd look in the back of the crate and be like, well, I could throw a jerkbait, but I don't really know how to throw it. No, I'm going to stick with this. But that's something too, right? Because that's interesting now that I think about it, is, one of the preparations or mental preparations I had was, and I think a lot of guys do it, is they throw a lot of different baits during tournaments. And one of the things I promised myself at the beginning of 2019, if something's not working in a half hour, change baits. And if that doesn't work, change it again. And, just constantly changing and retying on stuff till you find something new. I know I pick on my man Jay Randall all the time about it, but he's so set in his ways sometimes where we'll be fishing together and I'll be slamming fish. He's catching nothing. And I'm like, here, dude, this is what they're hitting. I'll give him the baits, throw them in his kayak.
Yeah.
He won't take them. And he never ties them on. Right. And I used to be that way. Didn't matter. I just keep throwing the same thing. And I think that's a huge mental hump that a lot of guys got to get over, is yes, you should fish your confidence baits, but if they're not working, they're not working. You got to be confident enough to change and go to different techniques and styles and really get into it. And I think sometimes a lot of guys struggle with that.
Yeah, for me, I always start with the confidence baits and then go from there. Or like you said, the research beforehand.
Yeah.
That plays a big part in what I'm gonna throw on practice day, and then I just adjust from there. And that for people that's hard to do for a lot of people.
Oh, dude.
You know?
Well, I remember like going back to that Table Rock event last year, in 2020. Like I went back and watched the who was it? MLF. It's like MLF or somebody was there.
It had to have been MLF. Bass hasn't been there in a long time.
Okay, yeah. So it was MLF, and I was watching. Damn it, what's that guy's name? I forget. He's a YouTuber, fishes Guggen Squad stuff.
Is it Jacob Wheeler?
Yes. I was watching Jacob Wheeler, and he crushed it in that event. And he was fishing a drop shot with like a neon pink worm. Morning Dawn was the color. And I'm like, I'm not super confident in drop shotting. I'm not super confident in fishing a hot pink worm either. Like, I don't think I've ever done that. And I was like,
I have a few.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like, I went out and I searched for that. Like, obviously he was throwing Guggen baits. So I searched for the, what do they call it? The dragon drop or something like that. In that Morning Dawn color. And I found him at a Dick's Sporting Goods out by me before I left. And I was like, well, I got to try this. You know what I mean? And during pre-fishing, I tried it. And I actually caught a couple spots out of trees, which was wild to me. I'm like, dude, this actually works. Like, this is crazy right now. Like, I would have never thought, I'm going to tie on a hot pink drop shot and pitch it to some trees. But because I watched that video or the replay of that tournament, I was like, oh, well, I guess this stuff does work.
Yeah.
And it's like, whereas I think a lot of guys that wouldn't be comfortable with that technique would be like, I ain't doing that. Like, I'll figure out some other way. And that was the thing. Like, I tried different presentations. Like, I tried a Nico rig. I tried the Ned rig. I tried shaky head. None of those worked. But that drop shot worked. And as goofy as it was, like, it caught me some fish, and I was just like, wow, all right. And I think that's the thing too, like, for all the newer anglers that are, out there in the tournament world, you just have to really be open-minded and try a lot of different stuff. Definitely do a ton of homework and just give it a go. It's going to be a process of elimination. And I think if you set that up, that's going to definitely help you as you progress on.
Yeah, I definitely feel the thing that I always was told, and I learned it on from another elite guy, is practice. When you're on a lake and you're not in a tournament, you're not in anything, practice the techniques you don't use. And then when you're in the pre-fishing stage or anything like that, go with your confidence until you're confident about everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's solid advice, man, for sure. For sure.
Because you don't want to start day one. You're not an offshore fisherman, and now you have to be an offshore fisherman in the tournament. And when all you do is fish lakes that are 5 feet deep or less.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, man. Like, I used to be, because I think you see a lot of guys that just beat the bank all day long, all day, every tournament, things like that.
A lot of them now are switching though to the offshore now that they got the live scope and they got all that out.
Sure. Well, that was the biggest thing, man. Like, it's kind of scary, like fishing that offshore bite, so to speak. You know what I mean? And I remember for the longest time, dude, I fought it. I'm like, there ain't no fish out there, but I knew there was fish out there.
I fight it every day,
dude.
still.
And it's funny because, well, that's the thing, right? Like you and I got to share the water this past weekend, and we went up that little stretch that was in the shallow kind of grass. And then I was like, all right, we're going to go out here. I know there's some trees out here, this and that. And you ended up catching 2 fish out there. But it's totally different, right? And like, I think that's a thing too. Like, I'm a very spoiled person because I have a lake in my backyard. Like, I can literally drive to the boat ramp in a minute, and I can fish shallow. I can fish deep. I can fish all kinds of different stuff. And that was the thing, right? Like, I think mentally, like, I was just like, man, offshore, deep water, like, what is this all about? And I was able to put in that work on my home body of water to where now I'm pretty confident. Like, I will go to a lake and I'll go check offshore deep stuff before I even go look at shallow stuff, which is kind of weird because I know a lot of guys are the exact opposite. Unless it's a spawn, of course, but
yeah, well, spawn, and then some people actually just don't trust it to be there on tournament day.
Yeah, see, and that's kind of weird to me because, like, especially if you're fishing some structure, right? Like, I've fished like deep spots out of my home body of water, whereas once those fish are there, they ain't leaving. Like, granted, there could be some weather changes and they'll move up a little shallower, they'll move up a little deeper, but they'll still be in this kind of relative area. You know what I mean? And that doesn't matter if it's a pond, a 200-acre lake, or 100,000-acre lake. Like, they're going to be relative to an area typically. So I think it's like getting over that too. Like, that's a huge mental thing too. Like, once you can get past that and fish everything from deep to shallow and everything in between, now you're dangerous. You know what I mean? And that is one thing, like, that took me a long, long time to like kind of figure out. Like, I need to learn this stuff. I forced myself to learn that stuff as much as I fought it. And now I like love it. Like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I feel that's where I'm at right now, is forcing myself to go look for that offshore structure versus just taking the kayak out and straight banking it all the way down till I find something.
Well, and I think that's it too, right? Like, we all have our little spots that we fish a lot, and we know we can get success in a certain area, and we don't go fish something different. Like, and that's just it. Whereas, like, a perfect example of this was this past weekend when we fished together. We left that dam area and you kind of floated into that grass flat where the wind was blowing in. And I caught like 2 over there, 2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah, you caught 2 or 3. I caught one good one in there.
And that's a place that I never fish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I was like, hey, let's go over to this other bay. And I've kind of fished the weed edge out by like the main part of the lake there. But like, we went deep in there and we were trying to hide from the wind. Granted, but I was like, there's got to be bass in here because everywhere we've caught fish has been in like 6 to 8 foot of water and grass. And that's what this whole thing is. So like, let's go in here. You know what I mean? And I think that's just it, like, you got to force yourself to adapt and change. Like, that's a huge mental game too, right? Like, just because, like you said, fish can move during pre-fishing, so if you were catching them in 3 foot of water and grass and, now it's bluebird skies and flat calm, like more than likely they moved out a little deeper, fish 6 to 8 foot of water and bam, there you go. Like, it's like, I remember as a kid, I played a lot of golf, and my dad, was a huge golfer or whatever. And they say that golf is 90% mental and 10% physical. Fishing's the exact same way.
Yes,
it is 90% mental, 10% physical. It may even be like 98% mental and 2% physical, because let's face it, like casting a rod doesn't take that much effort.
This is especially now with the motors on the kayak.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's just it, man. It's just like your mental game. It's going to be the biggest struggle, man. And I think the biggest piece of advice when you're having a tough day and you're like just getting super frustrated, I like to just sit in my seat for like 3 or 4 minutes, take a couple deep breaths, take a drink of water, drink a coffee.
It's normally snack time for me.
Kind of lean back, look up at the sky, and just be like, what in the hell are you doing? Just calm down. Let's figure this out. Let's think about this, And I'll sit there, kind of regroup, put a game plan together, and then go execute it. 9 times out of 10, when I do that, I usually succeed. If I don't do that and I just stay frustrated all day, it's a lost cause. You might as well put the kayak on the trailer and just head home, because I'm not into it and this and that. And I've done that before. I've had numerous people tell me, hey, I just wasn't feeling it that day. Or hey, I lost a fish. So I just packed it up because I was so mad and so pissed off at it that I just packed up, put it on the trailer, and left. And and that's just it, right? Like in some respects, I get it, right? Because I've been there. I've been like
we've all been there.
Mentally frustrated where like I just leave. But then I look back on it, the couple of times that I've done that, like who knows what would have happened. That goes back to you can get 5 bites in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that can completely change it. Like there's been tournaments that have been won like that. You know what I mean? Or fish have been upgraded in that last 5 minutes. Like
you hear it all the time. Where people will be like, I didn't have anything all day, but that last hour is what helped me win.
Yeah.
So definitely I feel that mental side of it is definitely, where it's at, and definitely where people had that mental breakdown. And for me, I sit down and I just like I'll eat something. I had it in Indiana when we had the Tippecanoe River.
Yeah.
Where at 10 o'clock I had nothing.
Yeah.
Not a bite, nothing. And I look at the scoreboard, which is the worst thing to do.
Sure.
I look at the scoreboard, and the worst thing that was the worst thing to do. And where I see someone already put up 86 inches and I have 0 inches, it doesn't help you at all.
It plays tricks on you, man. Like I used to be the same way. I used to look at the scoreboard all the time. And now the only reason I'll go and look is typically after I have a limit and I just want to check and make sure all my fish are there, that they're showing up on the actual leaderboard, that I submitted all my fish right.
Yeah, and that's what I looked for too towards the middle of the day on that first tournament in Indiana. Well, I got that first fish. It was a 14.5.
Yep.
And then I just kind of went from there.
Sure.
Where it's and then I sat down. I'm like, all right, I got 2 fish. I know they're not big, but there's not at that tournament, not a lot of people were catching anything. It was just Jackson was putting on a show, but everybody else was kind of struggling.
Yeah. Well,
so
it was. And that was the thing too, right? It started going back and forth between him and Matt Gibson, I believe.
Yeah, it definitely was. But, I kept to my game at that point. After I caught those 2 fish, I sat down and I just kind of relaxed for a second. And when I came out of that, I hooked another one. That was my second fish. I'm sorry. Because after I only had 1 fish because I only weighed in 3 that day. So I hooked another one after I had that little calm down moment. And then literally 2 casts after that, I hooked the 17.5. And that kind of changed the whole mood and the whole mindset of everything. Where I was actually fishing harder after that point versus I was down in the morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
But it definitely mindset plays everything into this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude.
That whole mindset of it is like, I feel like you should go into the tournament with the same mindset and come out of it the same way. Instead of getting frustrated, like anytime you get frustrated, your tournament's over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, 100%. I think the biggest takeaway from that is learning how to get past those humps, like how to deal with them on the fly, because they're gonna happen. Like I know now, like and as like I had fished more and more tournaments, like the biggest thing is like I used to get so mad at losing fish, you know what I mean? And now you just got to kind of, and like I guess I wouldn't necessarily say I got so mad at it. Like I did get mad at it.
It gets in your head more than anything.
And I was always pretty good at like just moving on. Like I would always tell myself, like if I lost a big fish, it's like, all right, there's another one in there. There's got to be another one in there. Let's keep going. And sure enough, like I would pull one out a little bit later, like I think that was a huge thing, was just like staying focused. Like, all right, there's going to be another one in there. There'll be another one in there. Just keep casting, keep going. Like like I said, man, like my biggest issue was getting caught up in all the other stuff that didn't matter outside it, like all the stuff that mattered outside of the tournament, not in the tournament. And I think a lot of people do that, but like I let myself get caught up in it, and I paid the price. You know what I mean? Like that was the year Derek Brundle won Rookie of the Year. Like had I just switched my whole mindset and not focused on that and just focused on fishing, I could be where Derek Brundle's at right now. Just saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll never know. Yeah. It's already done and over with. But it could have been a lot different.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that. Like, even though the paddle and fin series is growing still,
sure,
I still want Angler of the Year.
Yeah, you're up there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in third. And that's in my mind.
Yeah.
But I think where I'm good is once that tournament hits and goes off, that I just let everything go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't focus on it, man. Like
don't. I'm more focused on it around 1:00 when I know the tournament's over at 2.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not up there.
Sure. Sure.
During the tournament, I feel like I have a good mindset to where I could go into it, and the only goal I have is catch the 5 biggest fish I could catch that day, and it is what it is, Other than that, with the closing of it, I just wanted to know what was the motivation behind the trail series and everything, because I love it. I love that we have live coverage. I love that how you guys are doing it. So,
yeah, man. So obviously, because you've been to the events. But for those of you out there that haven't been, or maybe are considering it, like, the whole mindset behind that was we had all fished all kinds of tournaments, from national championship to KBF Trail Series events to Hobie events. I don't know if any of our group fished any bass events, but we all fished small club events.
I believe some of them did this year. I know that for sure. Kayak Bassin and Bears did the Lake Fork.
Yeah. That's true. Well, some of those guys, and that was the thing. Like, we kind of were like, what do you guys all like? Like, all of us that kind of put the trail series together. Like, what do you like about certain tournaments, or what were the most, how should I word this? What were the things that stuck out to you the most at any event? And what were the things that you absolutely didn't like from all the events that you fished?
Yeah.
And we kind of compiled a list, and we kind of pick and choose from there. Like, all right, well, how do we make this work? How do we not do this that people didn't like, and so on and so forth? And we just kind of put it together like that, man. And like, our biggest thing was, it's got to be for the anglers, right? Like,
and it definitely is. I feel every time I go to an event, it's not about you guys. It's not about the podcast or promoting or anything. It's all about us. You guys give us a chance to promote ourselves, even when a lot of us don't even have sponsors yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just it, right? Like, everybody wants something different out of tournament fishing, right? Like, some guys want to move up and be those big names. Some guys just want to show up and fish an event to say they fished an event.
Yep.
Some guys want it as a stepping stone. Some just want it as a something that they just go and do because they need to get away and just have some fun or meet some friends or whatever it may be. And we wanted that. We wanted it to be all of those things, right? Like, you could do whatever with it. But the biggest thing is like, going back to that 2019 season, like, there was a lot of things that I thought could have been better, like, for the anglers, versus, what actually transpired. And, and so on and so forth, like, bigger payouts, like, the biggest thing that we heard, which was something that I mentioned, was the big checks that guys get to take home, right? Like, we've all fished the club events.
I was happy about that.
Dude, you're not the only one. There's so many guys that have walked away with those checks. And, like, that's what they wanted. Like, they didn't even care if they won. They just wanted a big check to take home and put on the wall. Like, I've had so many top 10 finishes, and I don't have a single check or trophy or any of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that you could put on a shelf behind you,
which I'll definitely probably have next time.
Yeah, and you can cherish that, right? Like, your buddies come over and you're like, yeah, bro, check that out. Like, I got one of those big checks, makes me feel like Happy Gilmore, what I mean? But, like, that's things. And not only that, but, like, yeah, the live coverage, like, the updates, things like that. And not only that, but, like, just 100+% paybacks where, there's not money coming out of the money that the anglers are putting in to the prize pool isn't going towards Tourney X fees or PayPal. We wanted it to be 100% like paid back to the anglers, so that's, been super cool, and it's grabbing a hold, man. Like, that's my biggest thing. My mindset for that is just always making sure that every single guy or gal that shows up to fish one of our events goes home happy, had a good time, was glad they came, and they want to come back and fish another one because they had such a blast. Like, that's always my number one mindset with each event, is just making sure it runs as smooth as possible. So that way those folks want to come back. They enjoyed themselves. They had a good time, no matter how well of a time they had on that body of water. And not only that, but they're getting the opportunity to fish some really cool bodies of water.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying the series. I know there's a ton of people enjoying the series. And I look forward to Madison. Honestly, I said it. I want a W on Madison in 100 inches.
There you go. There you go. That's the mindset you got to have to win, man. You got to go in just with that positive attitude and just go for the gusto, man. Make it happen.
Yeah, you definitely have to go in with a mindset that I'm going to win, and whatever happens during the tournament is another story. But I feel like if you're not going in with the mindset to win, then you probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll end it here. And then I appreciate you coming on as a guest. And if you have any shout outs, you can say them now.
Oh, dude, I don't.
No,
everybody knows.
Yeah,
we don't need to do that.
All right.
We're good. We're good.
All right. Well, I will sign off now. Thank you guys for joining the Mindset Podcast, episode 1. Brian, again, I appreciate you as the first guest.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to seeing everyone on the second one.
Yeah, every other Sunday, yours will air. So be sure to check it out. So if Chasing the Tide's on, Mindset will come up the following week.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig